Democracy means not one size. There are common trends. Respecting human rights and respecting rule of law and civic participation and openness, transparency. I think there are common trends, and how to implement those things, how to make those things work. This is really important, and I think sharing those successes make us very happy.
A real democracy relies on responsible leaders. First of all, it's important to remember that a leader, also a political leader, should not rule the citizens, but be a servant for the citizens. A responsible leader is reaching out to common people through the civil society.
Civic participation. If you would like to advance together, let people participate. I think in Mongolia we will follow the way a state should become the service place.
The politician is not elected by the people to serve his or her own interest. He and she is elected to serve the people. And I think Mongolia has made substantial progress in that respect. I have met many Mongolian politicians with those standards that they are needed for doing a good job as a politician. They have a good ethical standards, they know their responsibility, and they are conscious of serving their people in a good way. As politicians also, there are opportunities and temptations around every corner, so they should be reminded.
We need to exercise accountability. By my initiative, we created in Mongolia citizen hall system. Every decision before we adopt, we discuss with the people. If you give power to the people, means we are giving budget, we are giving incentives, we are giving the places to discuss their issues. And people solve their issues better than any government. Because of that, decentralization in Mongolia is very important.
Mongolia, in a few short years, has made remarkable progress and has a very active civil society, both domestically as well as an openness to the international community coming to observe and coming to work on democracy here altogether. I think the Mongolian authorities have recognized and are confident enough in themselves to know that we can learn from one another, and that openness, I think, reflects that belief. It adds to the transparency, adds to the integrity of the process. By adding the element of observation, you promote accountability and you promote cleaner elections, because there's an understanding that when things go wrong, there will be someone there watching, there will be someone there acting as a watchdog.
The democratic development is improving every year. Our laws are being strengthened every year. Looking from the civil society point of view, I believe that there's still a long way to go ahead, especially regarding voter education. One more thing that we need to do is actually try to motivate the citizens so that they would actually want to know about their freedom, their rights, and have to vote.
Nowadays, many people know the terminology, what means democracy, market economy, but putting those mechanisms in place, putting those laws in place, and running that democracy in a real life, that's really, really tough. Many people think that if you have democracy, one day will be your life very nice, very good. No, only country will succeed if everyone work very hard. If I'm president, I should work very hard. Our state officials should work very hard. Our ordinary citizens should work very hard. You have to take care of your family. You have to take care of yourself. If there is some needed help for the elderly, for the children, for women, for disabled people, the state should help them. But the primary responsibility to take care of your family is you.
We have 25 years of democratic evolution, democratic development, And compared to other countries, it could be considered very young democracy. But compared to other nations, which are right now in the transition period, we could have our lessons learned, which is very recent. Right now, we're working very close with Kyrgyzstan, with Myanmar, with Bhutan, and East Timor, for example. So I think those countries and our country, it is very possible we share similar cultural aspects.
We've heard many good things about what's happening in Mongolia, especially the thriving civil society sector. And for me, I think civil society is also a reflection of the strength of a democracy. So we've come to basically to listen and to learn. Democracy in Bhutan is relatively new. It began in 2008. And for us in Bhutan, democracy is our path to good governance. Our ultimate goal is about contentment of people, right? Encapsulated in a vision that's called gross national happiness. So for us, democracy is the path that was set by the King of Bhutan, and the state, and we think it's very important that we try to make it work.
This is a very good chance we can share our experience with other countries. Sri Lanka is the one of oldest country which received universal franchise in 1931. We were engaged with 3 decades prolonged war, but Sri Lanka is a very peaceful country now.
It's also an experience that democracy is preventing conflicts in many ways, because if people don't influence their own society, sooner or later there will be a revolt, and sometimes violent. And it's also an experience that democratic states do not start war against each other normally. So democracy is conflict prevention, peace work. And I think Mongolia over the last years have really developed, strengthened their democratic system in many ways and can serve as an example for other states. And I'm so glad that also the President himself is very active in this regard, promoting democratic values in Asia and all over the world.
People learn when they have right. People learn when they make mistakes. I think beauty of democracy, you can make mistakes. If you make mistakes, that's just one step forward. You learn from that and go. In a dictatorship, if you make mistakes, sometimes it causes a jail term or life. But in a democracy, in freedom, mistake, that's one step too forward. Because of that, ordinary people like the democracy, ordinary people like the freedom.
Mongolia enjoys very friendly relations with all countries in Northeast Asia, with our 2 neighbors, China, Russia, and also with South and North Korea and Japan. Mongolia has no territorial or political disputes with any of its neighboring countries, because Mongolia first proposed the idea of creating regional security mechanism. Ulaanbaatar can become the center of the Northeast Asian Peace and Cooperation Center.
One of the priorities of Mongolian foreign policy is to develop friendly and bilateral relations with the countries of Asia and Pacific. And Mongolia has a lot of desire to play a role in our region. It's not only we just share our experience, we also need to learn from others. Not only we just sharing our experience on democracy and good governance, also we have to cover other areas of development. For example, the mining and mineral resources.
Mongolia is heavily dependent on mineral resources, and they are exposed for all those dangers and pitfalls following an unilateral sort of dependence on mineral resources.
In an emerging economy, it is important to try and find good models and not go into the same traps and do the same errors that Norway has done in the past.
If you have bad governance, if you have a lot of money, if you have poor management, country is in trouble. In this regard, Norwegian experience was really great experience for us.
There are many pitfalls, and we have fallen into some of them in Norway. Corruption is very often following the stream of money coming from this industry. There are a lot of money in the oil industry as well as excavating minerals. And you have to have a framework, legislation. There should be penalty for doing economic crime. There should be monitoring institutions, following up, and so on.
Now we created a special fund. We called it Future Heritage Fund of Mongolia. Now we will put royalty money and excessive money from the mining into the special fund. I think good government means saving their wealth for their next generation. A bad government means creating the debt, leaving your people with the debt. A good government means leaving your people with that wealth.
Then there is also a problem with overspending. There is a temptation to spend too much money. Money is flowing out into the treasury, and you can understand that many countries in need of improving the health system, the education system, infrastructure, all these things, and they are tempted to do this in a very short time. And that will be a problem from traditional industry. They couldn't compete any longer, they couldn't export. So we had to be very careful not to spend too much money at the same time to avoid appreciation of the currency.
Mongolia is regarded one of the 10th richest country in terms of the mineral resources, one of the 10th richest. And also my country, one time Mongolia became the fastest growing economy in the world. Economic growth was 17%. During that time, we expanded our budget. We gave social expenditure also expanded. Even we gave cash handouts to our citizens. That is really bad thing. Don't do that. That's a really bad lesson we learned.
In an emerging economy, there can be vast social impacts if a large sector is managed in a poor way.
With regard to their income from the mineral resources, and it will be to the benefit both for the current generation of people of Mongolia, but also for the future generation. This is also about responsible leadership. It's about how the political leaders should think about the children and the grandchildren and so on.
A lot of countries that enter into, sort of evolve economically, sometimes do the error of trying to go too fast. What you do then is that you get growing difficulties. You don't have the capacity to follow up what you've started. And you also, minerals and petroleum being a finite resource, you also use up, or you risk using up what you have quickly and poorly managed. But if you've used up all your possibilities in the first 10 years, then you have nothing more to take from.
That's why renewables are becoming mainstream in many countries, and we observe it in different parts of the world. I think in the Northeast Asia also it makes a lot of sense, especially when we look at the resource side, given the vast potential, renewable energy potential of Mongolia, especially the Gobi Desert, which is around 2.6 terawatt potential. I think it's a kind of export revenues that Mongolia is going to get through this improved interconnectivity in the region. It will be a very high value for the country.
The global energy gravity keeps shifting towards east and towards Asian countries. So it used to be the developed countries who is driving the demand growth, but it's no longer the case. Countries like China, India, ASEAN countries, the Asian region is the one who is driving the global energy demand growth. growth. So Mongolia, given the strategic location in that region, can play a very important role in enhancing the electricity connectivity and the energy connectivity in the Asian region, and we see a huge potential for Mongolia to play an important role.
Pollution is a big problem in this country. And if you pollute in the way they do today, that could risk a big, very problematic damage on nature for future generations. I'm very determined that when we are speaking of good management of natural resources, we should also speak of how we can at the same time protect the environment, avoid very serious damages on nature. And I think the amount of burning coal for energy, for example, is a problem in this country. So there should be a better standard for how they burn coal to avoid the emission of particles as well as greenhouse gases.
We have big environmental problem in Mongolia, and you have to have that kind of tough conversation.
Together we can make a difference. The European Union attaches great importance to our partnership with Asia. ASEM represents 60% of the world's population, trade and GDP. We have weight. The question is how we use it for positive purposes.
As an organizer, we like ASEM. ASEM is not only leaders forum. ASEM is a people's forum. ASEM is the business forum. ASEM is the parliamentarians forum. ASEM is the women's forum. ASEM is the media people forum, youth forum.
The ASEM summit provided the right and flexible framework for us to talk open and frankly about events unfolding across the world that affect us all. We know what the global challenges are. We discussed them: fighting terrorism, pursuing our trade agenda in order to create jobs, moving ahead after the Brexit vote, tackling climate change and the refugee crisis.
Terrorism is a global phenomenon affecting both our continents and beyond. It requires global cooperation to fight this inhumane, violent plague.
We are all affected by that. All our hearts, minds and souls affected by that. And we will stand together.
This summit marked 20 years of bringing Asia and Europe together. We now leave Ulaanbaatar with a renewed will to strengthen our partnership. Thank you also for sharing a beautiful and unforgettable insight into Mongolian culture at the Nadam Festival.
The first time I visited the country was in '98, and I came back later on, and this is the third visit. I'm admiring this country. The progress of this country, the marvelous development this country went through is visible. And so I'm congratulating the authorities of this country, but mainly the courageous and noble people of Mongolia, who deserve all our compliments, as the President deserves compliments for the efficient way he was leading our proceedings.
So it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and thank you so much for this wonderful experience, and also letting us feel how wonderful this country is. It's wonderful nature, and it's hospitable people, kind people, and yourself as well. Thank you so much.
Some will say that you can't expect the same level of transparency in Mongolia, in Timor-Leste, in Indonesia, as in Norway. I don't think that is true. There are no good reasons for hiding how your dollars come in from the companies and will come into the treasury.
All those lessons we learned, I think, through our tear, through our frustration, through our failures, actually we learned many things. And business should be separate from politics. This is my standing.
I think, in principle, the people, the journalists, the press should have the opportunity to follow every dollar produced by the buyer, the companies, all the way when it comes into the treasury. Without that transparency, the temptation is too high to steal, to do the corruption, which is stealing from the people of the country.
Corruption problem is not only Mongolian or Myanmar problem, it's worldwide problem. Mr. President, if you would like to recommend one law, I will recommend this law, glass account law. Glass account law means to put some monitoring on budget. If you spend money, every money should look like through the glass. And that's really supported from the people very much in Mongolia. And that's the transparency. Every budget money related with the decision should be updated within the 72 hours on your website. If you don't do, you are accountable. You will be dismissed from your position.
Transparency is a key. And I know that the President of Mongolia is very focused on transparency for what the politicians are doing in practice. And every public institution should be transparent. That people can, on websites and through other channels, really see what is done in practice. Nothing should be secret, and that is also the best way to fight corruption.
I love my journalist job, and I think every journalist likes their job because they choose. It was their will to be a journalist. Maybe it was their duty to be a journalist. And it is not easy work, not only in Mongolia, around the world. But it's very interesting to go to everywhere, to know the information first, to give fair and freely information to the people. But it's not easy also. If something is influencing from the side, might be from political or from private or from owners, it's many sides. Without journalists, this country, how could they get information? How to get have the bridge between government and people?
I usually say to our people, hey, you guys, I did not promise you to make everyone's life happy. I didn't do it. But I promise one thing. Democracy means not to please everyone. Democracy means to keep everyone's right to be different. I want to keep your right to criticize me. If you criticize me, you will not go to jail. You will not go punished. In Mongolia, we have freedom of press is at most. That's like oxygen. That's like a self-regulating system. That's like a self-healing system. And this is really important. People have a real genuine interest in our experiences also. Ask many questions when I met the media people, and also those people, civil servants, they are asking many interesting questions, and that was a really interesting conversation for me to talk to them, how to run government clean, you know, how to tackle those challenges.
Of course, we are very much interested in the democratization experiences of Mongolia, because we are going along the same road, and I hope that we will meet with the same kind of successes that Mongolia has met with in the last few years. I'm sure a lot due to the President and his government.
I know both the President of Mongolia over the last years and Aung San Suu Kyi, whom I have known for more than 20 years. They are two personalities in countries in Asia. They have much in common. They share the same basic values for democracy, for human rights, and for responsible leadership. And I'm sure that the two of them together now, they can make many synergy effects and do much in common, not only for Asia, but for the whole world.
Well, we of course share the same cultural heritage in the sense that the Mongolians, the majority of the Mongolians are Buddhists, and so are the majority of the people of our country. It's a different sort of Buddhism, but basically common to all Buddhist sects is compassion, loving kindness, and all those values which create friendship and brotherhood among human beings all over the world.
Yeah, not losing our own humanity. For us, enlightenment is very important.
Yes.
Morality is very important, I think, yeah.
And I think these two are essential if we want to make democracy succeed.